everyone. Welcome to the Self Love Project, a work of love by over 30 people. A work of love by over 30 people, which is just so incredible. So, the first thing I want to say is thank you so much to everyone who was involved in making this project a success. I would not have been able to do this without you all. So, thank you so much for just being willing and excited and happy to send me voice memos to make this come to life. My vision for the project was to bring different perspectives to the podcast on the whole concept of self-love. And we're going to go into the different aspects with each episode that will be released. So we'll talk about self-love, we'll talk about self-care, self-reflection, and self-awareness. We'll talk about self-celebration, self-improvement, boundaries, self-compassion and forgiveness, relationships with others, and how they influence self-love. I'm a firm believer in learning from others. And so even when I was creating this podcast, my goal was to create a podcast that would bring different perspectives. And so with this project, it's bringing so many different perspectives on aspects of self-love. And so my hope is that when people listen to this, they can get at least one thing, learn one new thing from somebody, or you could listen and be like, oh, this really resonates with me. Or you could listen and be like, oh, you know what? Maybe if I start doing this, that could actually help me out. So that's my hope, is that we all learn from someone out there and that we can all continue to grow. So I really hope that you guys will enjoy this project. Make sure that you share with people. I think there's just so much that can be learned from this project, and I'm so excited. So without further ado, I present to you our second episode in the Self-Love Project.
What does self-care mean to me, and how do I practice it? For me, self-care is when you have an awareness enough to take steps to tend to your physical and emotional health needs. Like you get to a point where you understand that your physical health requires some care, some pampering, and you also understand that your emotional health requires some care and pampering, and you go do those things. I'm terrible at self-care. But I'm aware of the fact that I need it. But what do I currently do? While I eat during the day, in the evenings, I watch a TV show. And that's one self-care way. I don't take calls during that time. I don't really check my phone during that time. I just eat and watch a TV show, and I absolutely enjoy it. I haven't been able to find anything else that would be self-care. So if you guys got opinions, let me know.
To me, self-care starts with an awareness of what I need to be doing well and feeling good physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. I think self-care kind of has a brand now as well, which is kind of related to getting facials and at-home pedicures, things like that, which I think certainly are aligned with my definition, but I also think it can be broader than just physical pampering and include things like intentional time with the people in my life that bring me a lot of energy and giving myself enough time to unwind after the workday so that I can show up for whatever I'm doing after work. I guess it's also kind of like giving myself grace.
I think self-care ties in with self-love. So similar things of knowing the things that help you be at your best. So being all rested, feeling fulfilled, relaxed, not stressed. I'd say a big part for me for self-care is feeling relaxed, and how I practice it usually is playing video games or watching TV shows or movies, but mostly playing video games. I'm able to be less stressed out just by connecting with what I'm playing and really being in it. So that's helped me be or take care of myself there. And also, again, from a religious perspective, praying as well helps me feel less worried about things. So that's another way of self-care for me.
So for me, practicing self-care looks like really taking the time to figure out what I need in the moment. So sometimes what I will do is when I feel anxious or I feel like I haven't given myself time is I really internally ask myself, what is it that I need in this moment? Sometimes it's sleeping in. Sometimes it's going and getting a really good workout in. Sometimes it's going to get some coffee. Sometimes it's reaching out to a friend. Sometimes it's just reading a book. So it really just kind of depends. But the main component of practicing self-care for me personally is really taking the time to dig inward and ask myself, what do I need in this moment to feel okay?
Self-care. Self-care is taking care of yourself. Sorry, I'm a practical guy. I try to take things as literal as possible. But essentially, I think for me, I try to think of having 4 different pillars of yourself. So there's your physical self, there's your mental self, there's your emotional self, which is your heart, and then there's your spiritual self. So self-care means having all these 4 things in sort of a balance. And balance doesn't mean they should all be equal, but they should all each thrive in an equivalent manner that you need to consider in your everyday life. So physical, take time to do fitness things, go to the gym, do workouts, eat well, try new diets that are good for you, leave the old ones, that sort of thing. Taking care of your body. Your body is your temple, so you got to take care of it. Emotional side, just have close friends and family that you keep up with, that keep you happy, engaged, enjoyable. Hobbies are a really strong part of it. And then taking care of your mental health, making sure that you don't overstress yourself, you don't overwork yourself, finding ways to either talk to people when things are tough or even when they're happy. It's always good to share with family and friends. Spiritual self, that is usually a very controversial place, but just do things that fulfill yourself spiritually. If it's either you align yourself to a particular spiritual belief, either religion or science, that's still a religion in its own thing, but just taking care of that aspect of it, doing things that align spiritually.
Self-care to me is doing anything that makes you feel the most like yourself and at a steady mental state, and anything that makes you feel mentally balanced and at zen is self-care to me. And I think right now I do 3 important things. One is taking care of the mind and body. So mine, I meditate. I use this app called 10% Happier. Working out or yoga, doing some sort of stretches and that makes me feel so much better for mind-body balance. Second thing is also having community and people around you to have a sense of belonging. I think that's a very important self-care, especially if you're living in a big city and wintertime is rough. There's so many other things that just makes your community not as accessible, and doing more of that is an important self-care. And thirdly, doing something for the adventure side of you. I think that's a very important self-care. It can look like taking a trip to a place that you always wanted to go, or maybe you just newly wanted to go from a 5-second Instagram reel. Trying out a restaurant that you want to go to. If you're me, trying out fun coffee shops and coffee gears and teas and anything that, piques the adventurous side of you.
Self-care is something that I am immensely big on. And what it looks like to me is understanding days that are lows for you and having methods, which I'll get into in a second, to deal with those lows, right? But it also means celebrating the highs. And to me, self-care in its purest definition is taking care of your lows as well as taking care of your highs and finding that striking balance between the two. Right? It's okay not to be doing well some days, right? But do you have the tools to get out that funk. And what it looks like to me is on days where I'm not feeling good, I take a second. I first acknowledge those feelings, right? An example is if I've had a really long day and I've had a negative experience throughout that day. On top of that, is I may wake up in the morning not feeling super well, and I acknowledge that feeling. Like, yes, I'm not feeling well. What can I do to feel well? How long will it take me to feel well? Do I have the answers to these? No. But certain examples include going to the gym, letting a sweat out, right? We sweat out the toxins, and that could be the negative energy. And then coming back, making a nice meal, acknowledging the feeling through journaling, or literally through talking out loud to myself if it's not a written journal. Reaching out to people who are my people, like family, whether that's my girlfriend, whether that's a close friend, and letting them know, hey, had this weird experience, wanted it to be a discussion between us two, and get your perspective. And so to me, that's how I sort of deal with any lows, and with highs, I just celebrate, whether that's going out with them, really just acknowledging those strong feelings of having achieved the goal. And the end of the day, that's how I define self-care, as well as deal with the highs and lows that are encompassed within that self-care.
To me, self-care is essentially me avoiding that point where I'm burnt out. As a person who's like, constantly working, even sometimes on weekends, I find myself working. Self-care, I need to, counter that hard work with self-care. And for me, that can look anything like taking a bath. I love taking baths. I actually go all out. I'll get my Epsom salts, my candles, my flowers. I typically put red roses. And I have a little caddy that goes over my bathtub. So I have my iPad there, and I will be either like watching TikTok videos, or going on YouTube, just doing something that makes my heart smile. So that's what self-care is to me, something that makes my heart smile. And yes, when I'm in my bathtub, I'm smiling. My heart is smiling, because that's something that I really love to do, and that's my way of relaxing. And I can also expand it to say that self-care is really taking care of my needs. It could be something as simple as drinking enough water, exercising. That's like a way to just release tension within the body, stretching, getting enough sleep. That's a form of self-care, actually, because I find that I'm way more effective in everything that I do on a day-to-day basis if I get enough sleep. There's sometimes the simple things that we tend to ignore, like, sometimes people actually brag, like, I can run on 2 hours of sleep, but what is that doing to you long term? It's really the simple things. Drink water, get enough sleep. That's like the most basic self-care.
Self-care is making sure to take care of your mind, body, and spirit's needs. For me, that means journaling, meditating, working out, doing some yoga in there, making sure that I'm providing myself and my body with what it needs to live a happy and healthy life.
Self-care is a form of self-love to me. So I would say I practice self-love by self-caring for myself. To me, it means after I know who I am, in my practice of self-love, then I take steps, whether they're physical, whether they're mental, to maintain, to honor that person that I am. So for me, self-care, it's recognizing the things that I need to do to be the person that I am content with, to be the person I know I am to be. How do I practice it? The different ways that I practice self-care, I think for me, it's categorizing things into these are physical ways that I can take care of myself. These are mental ways that I can take care of myself, or other ways, maybe like emotional ways that I take care of myself. Physical would mean, how do I maintain my skin? How do I maintain, like brushing my teeth, going for checkups, even if they're medical checkups once a year, or to the dentist or whatever it is. Realizing that maybe I need one day out of the week to really scrub myself and, let the body oils and body lotions on myself. That is the way I would say I take care of myself physically. Mental, for me, it's recognizing and being aware of where I am in my at any state of mind. Where am I? Is there anything bothering me? Is there anything that I would need to change mentally? Am I feeling anxious? Just recognizing what state of mental I am, and then taking steps in order to change things if I am not okay with that. So it also comes out if maybe by journaling, I can realize that I'm not in a good mental state, or I am in a good mental state, and how to maintain that positive attitude. It can also mean just like stopping myself in my tracks and asking myself, am I feeling good? And if I'm not, how do I do that? So just by being self-aware, asking myself where I am, that's how I would say I practice self-care.
Self-care is taking the time to stop and ask oneself what they need, and unpacking how we feel physically, mentally, and emotionally on a continual basis, and then responding with whatever support systems or whatever measures we need to take in order to address how we feel. And so that can look like, it can range from everything to do with, superficial challenges that we face, or superficial feelings that we have, to the more deeper feelings that we may hold, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so it can look like a spa day, it can look like a shopping spree, it can look like a chat with a friend, it can look like a nap, it can look like therapy, it can look like, responding honestly when people ask, how are you doing? It can look like building boundaries, saying no. It can look like saying yes. It can look like having fun, or it can look like crying. It's really about excavating the truth of how we feel and who we are in any given moment, and responding accordingly.
Self-care is so much more than taking a bubble bath and doing a face mask. I believe that it's doing things like drinking enough water and eating your vegetables and prioritizing meal prep so that you have an easy meal on really busy work days. I try to do fun things like getting myself a little treat at the grocery store, or spending a little extra time reading instead of washing the dishes. But as an adult, and especially as a parent, it means doing things that set your future self up to be successful. It's going to bed early instead of watching the next episode. It's prepping all of your kids' lunches on Sunday when all you want to do is sit down. It's eating fulfilling meals so that you're not constantly snacking on things that just drain your energy. I think it's setting yourself up for success. And sometimes that means a little treat, and sometimes that means a walk around the block.
When it comes to self-care, I can't honestly say I practice it regularly. I think if I was to define self-care, it looks more like activities such as going to the spa, you know, getting your nails done, getting your hair done, etc. So, I mean, maybe self-care for me is just proper grooming yourself, getting a haircut. I mean, for me, I think it's probably making yourself feel good. I think just doing things that will just make yourself feel good. For me, I think it's definitely just like fixing my car and maybe getting myself a haircut. Once I do those two things, I just feel like, yeah. So I think the triple threat combo is basically you get a new haircut, you get your haircut, your full tank, and you probably you service your car or you go out to watch football with the gents or something like that. That's probably like self-care for me.
Self-care is what you do because you love yourself. So I think self-care is an extension of self-love. Self-care is like the action of self-love. So I think self-care is quite broad in that it includes elements of self-love. So what we've discussed in self-love, that is doing the grand gestures or the grand actions such as exercise or spending time in your word and the Bible and praying, to feed your soul. I think it also includes the little things that may not be things that you necessarily need, but it's things that you want and things that you like. And you're going to do them because you care for yourself. They're things that make you feel like you've given yourself a warm hug. And you need to do that sometimes. So for example, for me, things that make me feel warm and fuzzy inside are to say after a long day at work or a long week, I say, you know what? I want to get myself a twirl. It's one of my favorite chocolates. It's in the purple packet. I get myself that. I put on some Netflix, put my feet on the table. Maybe not, but yes. And I just relax and I enjoy my chocolate. It's not something I need. Something that I want. It makes me feel good. So I'm going to do that for myself because I care for myself. So that's one aspect of self-care. I think another aspect of self-care is actually just getting in touch with yourself. So having a conversation with yourself and sitting with yourself and saying, how are we feeling? How are we doing? Checking in with yourself. Sometimes you have a rough week. Sometimes you had a good week. Whatever that looks like, checking in with yourself. Because as part of that, it helps that self-awareness action to be a continuous process. And whatever you're feeling or going through, you can address that. So if you're feeling a bit bad about something, does self-care look like forgiving yourself? Maybe you do the practice of asking for forgiveness, for example, or rectifying the issue. But does it also look like, hey, let me forgive my own self for what happened? So actually getting in touch with your emotions. Or saying that, this happened and I feel like I need to express myself to this person. Does self-care actually acknowledging the validity of how you feel and actually approaching the person? It can take any shape, various forms of it. But I think there's a physical manifestation of self-care. Like, hey, running a bubble bath, buying yourself a chocolate. And then there's also the emotional side. And that includes being in touch with your emotions and addressing whatever your soul is feeling, because that's valid and that matters. And if you won't do it, nobody else will. So you got to take care of yourself.
So for me, self-care is basically anything that keeps me sane. Be it exercise, food therapy. I love food. I make sure that I treat myself to some good food every now and then, and just make sure that I'm in a good space. I am surrounded by people who respect me, who respect my emotions, my feelings, and just make sure that it's all good energy and all good vibes in every aspect of my life. So that's basically how I take care of myself. I pamper myself here and there, and I just take, as a mom also, I make sure that I take some time off from my husband, from my child, and just have me time and just get myself time to recharge and to just take a breather. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's how I practice self-care.
For me,
self-care also comes down to being kind to myself. And how do I practice it? This is like reminding myself that I matter, that I'm important to some people, or that there is a value that I have that I can share and or provide to someone. For somebody who comes from a background where I'm not used to do that, and everything, like, as a man you have to go through whatever you have to go through. It doesn't matter if you have to be kind to yourself or not. All you know was you gotta do what you gotta do. But recently I learned how to like look deep down inside me and see how I could improve in life, and how can I cope with like thoughts or emotion that overwhelm me, and try to come up with something that can help me navigate through everything. And so far what I came up with was being kind to myself and reminding myself of the good things and the value I have, and I guess who I am as a person, and appreciate little things that I have in life.
Self-care, I feel like, is also another synonym of self-love. They're more or less the same thing, but I think the difference with self-care is, with self-care, I feel like one needs to be very or more intentional about taking care of their own physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And how I do that, or how my self-care looks like, I try to create a self-care that makes me feel healthy, relaxed, and happy. This may look like me engaging in activities like exercises such as Pilates, kickboxing, going to the gym, trying out aerial yoga. And I also focus on eating well, being mindful of what it is that I put in my body. This may look like me checking for or looking at the nutritional content of foods, like making sure like the sugar intake, like if I'm not just putting garbage in my body. And additionally, adding to that is getting the full 7, trying to get the 7 to 8 hours of sleep, being intentional that, or if I have to be up at 5 a.m., that means I have to be in bed at 8. Or if just being intentional about taking good care of yourself and understanding that you need to be present, and your body, you need to take care of your body now so that later it can take good care of you. Another form of self-care is spending quality time with loved ones, my friends. I'm a social person. I feel like no man's an island, and community plays a very big factor. Having friends that motivate you and lift you up, that counsel you or put you in your place if they see that you're not, like, life is going south for you, that are able to pick you up. It's good to like be able to help and receive help. Ultimately, for me, self-care is just about putting oneself and ensuring that I am able to take care of my own needs and maintaining a balance in my life.
Self-care for me is the practices, habits, and routines that I keep in my life that help me to maintain a good balance in my mental, physical, and spiritual health. So for me, when I'm looking at self-care, it's about how can I take care of myself so that my mental health and all my other types of health are at the highest level. So that could include like going to gym, the way that I eat, eating the right type of food, eating foods that I know are going to energize me. That's also from a spiritual perspective. That's reading my Bible, keeping myself in prayer. So it's that kind of thing for me, where it's all the things that keep me at the right level, rather than little small bursts of energy where I'm trying to, make up for something else. But also there is a physical side to it as well, where it's making sure, like, just your routines, whether it's your skincare routine, your hair care routine, your beard routine, that kind of thing. So for me, that's self-care. But it encompasses everything from all the way from your the small things like the physical, all the way down to your spirit, which is like the biggest thing.
Okay, so the next prompt is, what does self-care look like to you? And how do I practice it? And I think this is a bit tough as of late, because I'm back in school. I'm back in mid school, and mid school is rough. So the typical way I would usually take care of myself before I was in mid school, it was very surface level, and I still value those things at a surface level. So, like the surface level things that I enjoy are like a bubble bath, getting my nails done, getting my hair done. The nice things of making me feel good. And then there are the deeper things that I think I try and maintain. Journaling. I really, really try my very best to really reflect on the kind of person I want to be, the kind of things I'm going through. Sometimes I will literally just, it doesn't even have to be like a written journal. I will close everything and I will pray, and that is kind of part of my journal. I will literally just be like talking with God or talking to my ancestors, talking to spirit, whatever. And I would just be like, yo, I am just like really going through this, and I don't know. I know I can get through this, but I'm really struggling. Like, I want to do better. And it's something that I feel like, especially in the craziness of being in mid school and, sometimes being alone, being able to like just put it out into the atmosphere, put it out so that the entities that really support you, be it God, be it your ancestors, be it whatever, can hear you and be like, yo, we got your back. So I think my self-care is more spiritual. It's very much a release of all the things that I've been struggling with, and also knowing that I can get through this, just needing a moment. So that's how I think of my self-care right now.
Self-care means having time to reflect and relax the body and mind. I practice this by having alone time while doing something I like. For example, watching a show or going thrift shopping while not being bothered by others.
Whenever I think about self-care, I'm reminded of the quote from Audre Lorde that caring for myself is not self-indulgence, that it's self-preservation, and that it is an act of political warfare. So taking that further, to me, self-care is a means. I use self-care as a means to listening to my own needs and wants and desires and striving to honor them. And this involves a daily practice of recognizing and acknowledging my needs, wants, and desires, and acknowledging them as valid and worthy, which is significant as like many women and other gender minorities are often told in so many ways that their needs don't matter, or that they should continue to put others' needs before their own, even if it means from pouring from an empty cup. And also, I acknowledge that being able to implement self-care is commonly portrayed as it's commonly portrayed, like going to a spa day or whatever. It can be a privilege based on time and finances. But, even like in my own life as a graduate student, neither time or finances are plenty in my life. So I've grown to implement self-care throughout my day through small practices. Like, for instance, if I'm feeling stressed, I might take just a deep breath and sigh it out. Maybe sigh out anything that doesn't suit me. Breathing in any positive thoughts or anything that I might need in that moment. So even just doing that simple thing by breathing, taking a deep breath, a mindful breath, I'm also sending myself self-compassion and acknowledging my worth, acknowledging that I'm worthy of taking that moment for myself.
Self-care to me is, just taking care of yourself, and that could be done in many ways. It could be fitness-wise, it could be your overall health, just doing something that makes you happy and that makes you just feel cleansed. For instance, to me, that's, going for a run, going for a walk outside, always making sure at least after work I go outside and, breathe fresh air, and just doing other things that make my mind move, like learning something new, for instance, like playing guitar or just anything that just makes you feel like you're really taking care of your being, you're taking care of your overall self.
Oh, girl. Self-care to me is taking naps. And in a perfect world, taking more than one nap is like perfect self-care thing for myself to do. Self-care is therapy. I think therapy is very important in as much as it's stigmatized or people don't practice it or they feel a type of way about it. I think it's important. It's a form of self-care and it's therapeutic. Um, Self-care is being open with your feelings, reflecting on your actions or your feelings. Self-care is being able to communicate how you're feeling to the next person. And the reason I say that is because it brings some sort of peace rather than bottling things inside. That's self-care. And I think I've answered the next question, which is how do I practice it? Which is basically by napping, therapy, and trying as much as possible to communicate because it's definitely a way to release somewhat the anxiety or to have some sort of peace within myself.
Well, self care, it means doing something which will improve or keep your physical and mental health in a good condition. And how I practice it is mentally, I'm a person who doesn't stress over things which I have no control of. And physically, I just try and keep myself in shape and mind what I eat. And also, just staying clean and fresh. Hygiene also is good self-care.
Okay, if you had asked me what self-care was like a month ago, I would have said something like a mani-pedi, a massage, a spa date, or something like that, right? But I actually took a mental health class through my healthcare provider, and they had, I think, 8 categories of what self-care can look like, and that really helped to expand my understanding of what self-care is. So the categories are physical self-care, psychological self-care, emotional self-care, relationship self-care, and professional self-care. And some examples of physical self-care is like eating regularly and eating healthy, exercising, taking time off from work when you're sick especially. Psychological self-care would be like self-reflection, journaling, minimizing stress, saying no to extra responsibilities sometimes. Emotional self-care would be letting yourself feel optimistic, hopeful, let yourself experience awe or inspiration. So being in nature, singing, praying, just like things that cater to your emotional well-being. Relationship well-being, making time to see friends, relationship self-care, making time to see friends, responding to texts, like checking in with relatives, and then professional self-care, taking time to chat with coworkers, seeking a mentor, or being a mentor. So yeah, that's how I understand self-care now. A lot more than what I initially thought it was, and just kind of flushing out those definitions.
So self-care means making your physical, mental, and spiritual health a priority. But how I practice self-care currently in this chapter of my life is resting. I have a very busy schedule and I prioritize my rest. I have a strict time for bed on the weekdays and I have a strict time. I have a whole routine of waking up and getting enough sleep. And on the weekends, I try to get a good enough sleep before I become social or have some errands to run. But the way I practice self-care is by resting. Resting can be watching TV and just relaxing. I enjoy my solitude, so that's the best way of how I, have my own self-care. Watching a movie, watching a documentary, listening to music. Sometimes it can be going on a walk. That's restful to me, even though it seems like an activity that you have to move. It's still resting my mind. It's like meditation. Or just like laying in bed and sleeping for as long as I want till I'm tired of sleeping. Well, I've not had those days in a while, but I try to sleep in on the weekends, depending on the errands I have to run.
Self-care to me is being intentional about loving me and caring for me. So one thing that I came across was the 5 love languages and how we like to receive love and how we give love. And one thing that I found to be so striking was the way that we like to receive love is the way that we should love ourselves. So whenever I look at self-care, I think of the different ways that I can love on myself, different ways that I can rejuvenate myself. So for me, one of my top love languages is physical touch. So self-care could look like taking a nice bubble bath, giving myself a nice scrub, going for a massage, something that engages with that love language. It's just basically just really being intentional with the way that I'm caring for my body and my spirit, a way to just rejuvenate me, and a way that will recharge me.
Self-care is admittedly a little harder to think about and focus on week to week. And so when I think about it for myself, it's trying to take the really small steps that I can work into my schedule of checking in, and sometimes that's trying to journal, sometimes that's just trying to take a moment and enjoy like the sunshine, which is admittedly a lot harder than it sounds. I think I could probably be better about listening to what my body needs and trying to like rest and recover, because it's hard sometimes, and I don't have a great answer as a guru of any sort. But having the awareness is a step in the right direction, and I try and do that as often as I can. And that sometimes looks like once in a week, and sometimes I do really good, and I do it 4, 5, 6 times out of the week.
For me, self-care is when you basically are taking yourself out on dates, you're treating yourself, you're buying yourself gifts that you don't usually buy often, you're treating yourself well. How do I practice it? Personally, for me, I practice self-care by going to the spa, taking myself out on dates at least once a month or once every 2 weeks, as often as I can. I really do practice self-care a lot, because for me personally, it's something that is big on me, especially because I wouldn't want to, rely on somebody else to, care for me and whatnot. So I just practice, self-care on my own. And I feel like it also then teaches you to have love for yourself, to care for yourself. You also then learn to care for others as well if you're able to, practice self-care.
Self-care is about putting the time and effort into investing in yourself and your needs to stay healthy and happy, which, yes, could mean financial investments, but it also includes physical or emotional actions that require no money at all. I practice self-care by having things like bedtime and morning time routines, making time to exercise regularly, cooking and eating good foods, going to regular doctor appointments or getting haircuts done regularly, and even just checking in on myself daily and giving myself time to think and reflect on my day and how are things going.
To practice self-love means to provide yourself with affirmations, comfort, but also to kind of make choices that feel uncomfortable because it'll be better for you in the long run. Practicing it doesn't mean just a one-off here and there, but it means to make it a part of your daily routine.
Self-care means taking time to myself. So how do I practice self-care? That means I just simply, do what it's like I don't say no to myself in a responsible way. So, if there's something I've been meaning to do, relax, things that relax me. So if I want to read a book, that's a part of self-care. If I want to play FIFA, that's part of self-care. If I just want to run, I think that's also part of self-care. Yeah.
Self-care to me means taking care of myself, and there are different aspects to me. So there's the mind, body, and spirit. When it comes to the spirit, I would say there are three things. I would say the first thing is listening to and singing along to worship music. That does it for me. It really just uplifts my spirit. The second thing is going to church, and I know that when I don't go to church for like some consecutive weeks, I would just start to feel like something is off. So going to church just really does it for me. And then I'll also say reading the Bible. The Bible just encourages me, especially when I'm going through tough times. So that, and then also praying. And then when it comes to the mind, I'd say a big thing for self-care for me is just protecting my peace. So one time, I guess I'll give an example. A few years ago, when a certain person was a president who was, quite frankly speaking, problematic, there would always be notifications from Apple News flashing on my phone. And I started to feel like I was anxious all the time because I was like, what is next? Like, what's this president going to announce? So what I did then was I deleted Apple News from my phone. And so for a long period of time, there would not be any unwanted notifications coming through to tell me about things that I was not looking for, right? So that was a way for me to protect my mind. And then when it comes to the body, I'll say one way of taking care of myself is recognizing when I've been consuming too much of something and just being able to tell myself that, hey, you know, for the next month or the next 2 months, I'm not going to be consuming whatever it is. And then just in general, when it comes to self-care, I think it's a lot to do with relaxing myself and doing things that I love. And one of the things that I absolutely love doing is going to the movies. So I'll go to the movies. I like movie theaters that have recliners. So I'll just be sitting there watching a movie and I'm just in my zone and just having a good time. I also take myself out on dates. So I'll go to a restaurant and I'll be like, you know what, just give me a table for one, and I'll sit there, and it's a way for me to just connect with myself and to just enjoy the goodness of life, you know. I'll order my favorite apps, my favorite entrees, my favorite desserts. It's just my time to just have a good time and, you know, enjoy some drinks as well. And then the other thing is going on trips. I absolutely love traveling, and I think that's a way that I also take care of myself. But I think at the core of it, you know, when there's no money or when I'm on a budget, there's other things I could do that don't have to do with money, which I mentioned earlier.